probably one of the larger, if not the largest, showing you guys put out. And I think that's so great because you are, I mean, you know, you hear it. We all hear it that the enlisted corps and the NCOs are the backbone of the Air Force. Well, guess what? You're the backbone of the backbone because the staff sergeants and tech sergeants are the movers. Y'all are the people that get stuff done, you know. And it's also, believe it or not, it'll be some of the best time of your career because it's when you get to do all that stuff that NCOs do with all the crazy stuff that the chiefs and everybody else has to do. And so you get to do it. Today I hope to give you a few ideas. Just talk a little bit about ways to do it. What is it? You know, being a leader. Part of being a leader sometimes is doing all those good things, putting your airmen in for awards and, you know, shaking their hands, seeing the babies and all that stuff, right? That's part of being that leader. It's getting them to accomplish more than they've accomplished on themselves, by themselves. The other part of it sometimes is correcting those items when they aren't to your standards or to the Air Force's standards. And so that's where your challenge will lie for a lot of you. How many of you here have ever seen someone just at 1630 as they go like this? They walk out of a building, they're at 1630, and they hear it and they go like that. How many of you ever seen that? How many of you ever corrected that? Yeah, you know, one day, my chief and I was a senior master sergeant at the time, and I was working for our squadron chief. We were walking out of our building, we were walking by our cars, and all of a sudden you hear retreat start, okay? And so we dropped this, and I looked over, and there were these two guys standing out there in the parking lot. And as soon as that first musical note hit, you see them both go zoom right to their cars. And so I was sitting there, you know, we did our salute, held it real tight, and I'm just sitting here, I'm gonna kill him, I'm gonna kill him, I'm gonna kill him. The chief's like, calm down, calm down. I said, I got him, chief. He goes, I get him. I said, no, I got him. He goes, okay. And so as they had to, and guess where they had to come out of the parking lot? By me. So I stood there, and they both came, and I made them get out of their cars, gave them a little chewing. But then I said, tell you what, I said, you guys have it figured out. And this is after 9/11. You know, we're in the middle of a war, and people are wanting to run and not show respect for the flag and to all the sacrifices that other people have done. So those two individuals, I said, I tell you what, I said, tomorrow afternoon, 16:30, I'll see you guys over at the flagpole. And oh, by the way, I'll see you the rest of this week by the flagpole in service dress. Okay, I'm a maintainer. First of all, to tell a maintainer to put on service dress is a punishment in itself, they think. But, and it's not. But those two individuals came back, and every day I'd come there, and I gave them a couple names. They'd look at me, we'd do a retreat. They figured it out after the first day. I gave them 3 names. I said, think about those 3 names. And they're like, okay, 3 names. And after retreat, I turned to both of them, and I said, this person died in Fallujah, this person died here, this person died here last week. And they were like, I said, so they're being draped in that flag. So those are the things you do, because sometimes people don't think about what they're doing. You know, would a letter of reprimand for disrespect to our flag have worked? Not really. But when you tie it to something else about how this outcome and what that action has done, that's when it means a lot. I've been lucky in my career. I've had a lot of really great supervisors. And some bad ones. And we learn from both the good and the bad. My first assignment, and some of you in ALS have probably heard this, or most of you in here, maybe, maybe not, but I can't tell you my first sergeant's name, and I can't tell you my very first commander, squadron commander. I couldn't even tell you what group or wing commander was. I have no idea in A1C. But I can tell you who my first supervisor was, Timothy Claiborne, Staff Sergeant Claiborne, about that tall. And why? Because I'm originally a sheet metal guy who they transplanted at a desk. And when I was an airman, I was doing a repair. And he was a good supervisor. You know, I had to do everything, all the things that airmen do. And he constantly looked at us, me, because there was about 4 of us that came in about the same time in our shop. And he'd look us over every day, and he was my supervisor, wrote my very first performance report. And when I would work for him, he never gave me a shortcut, ever. And I remember one in particular repair that after I'd done a few of the basic things, I did this repair. This repair took me all day long. And, you know, and I was proud of that repair at the end of the day. And it was about 3:30, 15:30 for the military folks. And, you know, it's like, I'm done. I'm getting ready to show him so he can tell me I'm done, and then I got to clean up for the day. And he sits there and he looks at it and goes, yeah, it looks pretty good. He goes, did you put sealing on all the parts? I looked at him and I was like, oh, crap. Well, see, that's like step 5 of about 20. And he never corrected me until the very end. He goes, okay. He goes, well, you got to redo it because you got to take it all apart and put sealant on it and put it back together. I'm like, I said, okay, well, I guess I'll get that done tomorrow. He goes, before you go home. And I was like, okay. Walked over to the phone, called my wife. You know, that was when we didn't have cell phones. You know, we actually had to go dial numbers, a little circular thing. And I called the wife with the one car and said, hey, listen, I'll call you when you can come get me because I got to stay a little late. And he stayed there the whole time I did that repair. And it took me about another 2 hours to take it apart, to reseal it, and shoot it all back together. But he stood there beside me and did whatever else he had to do and never said a word to me until I was done. And he walked back up and said, okay, that looks good. And I remember that next time. And I said, okay, I will. You say, well, that's not discipline, that's training. No, same thing. See, he taught me that there were no shortcuts to get where I needed to go. And then he also told me that even though I may screw up, he'll be there beside me and help me through it, because his job is to enforce the standards, and he did that. But his job was also to support me. And so that's what y'all got to do. You got to figure out those things. My very first airman in the Air Force was a 2-striper that got an Article 15, became a no-striper. Before, I'd had him for a month. Why? Because he was AWOL for 30 days. And it was just one of them things. So I learned early what an Article 15 was. And this young man, I spent a lot of time with. I'd love to tell you that he's a productive member of our society today, but I have no clue, and I doubt it. Because he lasted about 18 months and we kicked him out. So you're not going to win them all, but you need to try. How many of you here, most of you don't have an office, so there's some tricks to discipline, I could tell you, that really mean a lot. But one time, I had a few staff sergeants, and they had their airmen who had messed up and done some really stupid stuff. And so I was a flight chief, and I called them in, their supervisors, and then their shop chiefs. So I had like 6 NCOs from staff sergeant and above, and we had the 3 airmen. And I said, I need to see you guys. I need to see you here at my office at 15:45. And they're like, okay. So they came there, and I said, hey, airmen, stand out in the hallway. Parade rest. I'm pissed at you. They're like, oh, okay. So they had to stand out in the hallway, 15:45. But you know what happens around 1600? Shift change. And I said, so they stood out in the hallway, parade rest, a shift change. And gee, it took me about 20 minutes to get to it. And I remember closing the door, and you know, the staff sergeants, supervisors were just like scared to death. And I said, so how you guys doing? I said, yeah, have a seat. And all just looked at me. I said, yeah, sit down. Hey, what do you think? Oh, we're going to leave them out there for a while. And they were just flabbergasted that I wasn't mad at them, at the supervisors. I knew what the airmen had done. But I told them, just leave them out there for a bit. They're like, why? And I said, you'll see. You could sit there and listen to every airman walk by them and say, dude, what are y'all doing in front of the chief's office? The whole time. Now, what do you think those airmen got? I got a little bit of chief love. That's it. I didn't do it. I told them, I said, this is your freebie after the end of it. But it wasn't free to them because every airman in our flight had walked by from days and swings. Now, that event that they did occurred earlier in the day. I could have said, hey, come right now. But instead, I said, you guys figure out your answers. I'll see you at 15:45. Timing. When you do counseling, you got to think of that time. Think about when you want to do it. And sometimes discipline is that peer pressure. How many of you would have liked to have been out there in that hallway? that 20 minutes waiting to see the chief. That sucks. And see, that's the things that make a difference. We're in the military. The branch of military we're in is the Air Force. Our airmen expect to be disciplined like military folks. Now, that doesn't mean a piece of paper every time they screw up. Sometimes that means a little supervisory love, okay? And that's sometimes to tell them that, hey, you know what? You really let me down. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to cuss. You don't have to be non-professional. Now, sometimes you do. Okay, it's a point across. Some people, everybody's different. And that's what I'm trying to get across to you. Everyone in here is different. Some of you I could walk up to and say, man, and just walk away. And you'll be like, God, what did I do wrong? I did something wrong. What did I do wrong? And others of you can be like, damn, you forgot what he was going to say. Okay? And it's knowing who is what. Because sometimes that's all you got to do to somebody is walk up and say, you know, you really let me down. That's it. You let me down. And then to others, saying you let me down, and they're not even blink an eye. And you got to identify that. You got to identify those people that take a little bit more. And maybe that person that will be like, ah, it's okay, I'll let you down, what do you do? But then you could go up and say, well, we need to work on that. So I'll see you here in the shop at 0700 Saturday. But hey, dude, I'm going hunting, I'm going on the bike, I got stuff to do. I don't care. We're going to come back Saturday. You're like, ah! Well, then you just found the thing that motivates them. Now it's their off time. And so now you got that tool. And once they learn that, okay, action A and action B is going to get reaction C, and I do not want C, you end up stopping. And that's what you got to look at. Because sometimes it just means a little freedom, okay? I mean, that's just like most of you guys, I use guys gender neutral. Most of you grew up here in the technology age, you know, computers and stuff. We have a 16-year-old in the house. I could yell at her all day long if I wanted to. I'm just not talking to you. Standard 16-year-old. But I say, give me your phone and your laptop, and it's, the world is ending. You got to find out what that phone and laptop are here, okay? And then give them that, and enforce those standards. Every one of you here, if you're walking around the BX or something like that, and you see someone out of uniform, correct them. Don't walk by it. They expect an NCO. When they see these stripes, they don't expect an E5 or an E6. They expect a staff sergeant and a tech sergeant. And a staff sergeant and a tech sergeant will not let an airman walk by with his hat on crooked, hat up, or on the young ladies. How many of you have seen some of our female airmen walk around and their hats like up here? You know, and it's like, why? It's because their hair is not done in a standard that they can wear a properly sized hat. And usually walk up and say, that just looks good. What? It's got to fit your head properly. And, you know, usually that's just something embarrassing enough that they're going to say, okay, let me refix the hair. And some, they say, well, nobody's ever corrected. You don't know how many times I've talked to your airmen about things, and they said, nobody ever told me that. That's all you got to do is tell them a lot of it. Does that make sense? There's not anything here really creative, nothing really wild besides think outside the box. Paperwork is not the answer all the time. It's necessary to document behavior sometimes. If the first time you talk to someone, it doesn't work. You know, I'm a firm believer in I will talk to you first. How I talk to you is pretty much how you react to my beginning. You know, if you're a person that would turn away, you're going to get a little more forceful to grab your attention. If you're the person that's shaking in the booth before I've said the first word, I'm going to be a little more calm. Because, you know, I don't want any accidents. So remember that. And then after that, if it doesn't do any good, is when the creative leadership and the creative discipline kind of goes away and you go back to the standard. Okay, we're going to go through the steps now. Because clearly you're not getting the message. And it's your job as a supervisor to do that. Does that make sense? It's hard. It's hard to have to admit you lose an airman. It is. I had, the last thing I'll tell you is this. I got an airman. I was running running a support section in a bad flight. And we had an airman in the shop who had gotten in some trouble with other supervisors. I was a tech sergeant at the time. And his supervisor was all pissed off. And I said, well, here, give him to me. I said, I'll work with him. I've been working with him for a day or two. I'm like, okay, he's not so bad. And he responded to me. You know, this kid was an inner city kid who just didn't trust anybody. He had a lot of family issues, and he was just he just had a lot of baggage. And so he started working for me, and he worked great. I had to go up to our commander with my shop chief and my flight chief, and the commander looked at me in the eye and said, hey, so what do you think? And I said, well, sir, I just got him. I've had him a month. He's done great for me. He's been to work every day on time. I said, I'd like to try, before we make a decision, I'd like to try. He said, okay, I'll let you try, Sergeant Malpass. So I took that guy, and I tried. He was able to give me about 2 good months. And then he just couldn't keep it up. And then come in late, come in this, got in this trouble, got in that trouble. And it culminated with me and the shift supervisor, master sergeant, having to drive about 40 miles to where he lived to pick him up because he didn't come into work. And so then I had to go back to my commander again. The commander looked at me and goes, so what do you think? And I looked at him and I said, well, sir, I've tried. I've tried everything I could do. He did great, but I just don't think he's going to make it. I think he needs to be separated. And he goes, okay. And so the meeting left, and as I was walking out with my flight chief, he goes, well, you passed. I was like looking at him going, well, what do you mean I passed? And he goes, well, you know that was a test. And I said, well, I have no clue what you mean. And he goes, well, he goes, the commander had already decided to kick him out. He just wanted to hear what you had to say. I said, well, we need to kick him out. He goes, right. But if you hadn't said we need to kick him out, and you said, let me give it one more try, he goes, you would have lost face with the boss. And that wouldn't have been a good thing. So you see where I'm going with that? You got to try. That's what our job is, to say it. But when we can't, we got to give that straight answer to the boss. So we got to go. The biggest thing I'll tell you is this: come from the heart, know what's right. If you don't like to be treated a certain way, don't treat someone that way. Just because you respond a certain way, don't think they will. But just be respectful, because discipline is all about respect. And if you're disrespectful to them from the get-go, they're not going to respect you. So that's the most creative thing. How do you discipline somebody and still keep that respect? And the easy answer is always be an NCO. Okay? As long as you're Sergeant so-and-so, your first name is Sergeant. Remember, I tell you that in ALS. And when you get selected for Staff Sergeant, until the day you make Chief or get a commission, your first name now is Sergeant. Okay? That's got to be that way. You can be your buddy yesterday, tomorrow it's Sergeant. That's what you got to do. And you'll be amazed at how easy discipline happens after that. Make sense? All right, well, that's kind of it. I mean, I could talk hours. You gotta remember, I've been in for 27 and a half years. I got lots of stories. I can keep y'all here all day and bore you. But I got all kinds of stuff. What kind of questions y'all got for me? Anybody ever had a hard case or some suggestion they'd like? Nothing. Remember two-way street communication? Feedback? Did I bore you? Make you lose your appetite? No? Well, listen, I thank you for everything you do. You guys have a tough job. It's going to get tougher in the next few years. We all know that. Is there anybody here that thinks it's going to get easier over the next few years? Yep. We are right. And so it's going to get tougher, and we're going to rely on you guys to think outside the box, to solve problems. And because, the way I look at things may not be the right way. It's you guys who are going to be here the next 20 to 25 years that are going to be the solvers. And the things you think of may be the things you live with. Okay? I mean, at best, I've got a little over 2 years left. And so that's the difference between you and me. Got a lot of experience, but the future is yours. So if there's anything I can help you with, let me know. I think it's great to see the 5-6 this big. Talk to each other, spread it out. If you're sitting at a table with nothing but security forces, spread them out. No more than 2 people per shop or whatever. I don't care. But talk to each other, because you'd be amazed at the similarities you have, and the same problem that happens in maintenance happens in security forces, happens in the med group, you know, happens everywhere. Make sense? All right, nothing else, huh? Y'all are too easy. Nothing. All right. Well, I'll let y'all go, and y'all have a good meeting. And again, thanks for everything you do. See that?